about the liberal redneck, and I became an immediate and rabid fan. Trae sounds like every person I went to school with, except he makes sense with that same twang. When something big happens in politics, Chief, I don't look at CNN. I Google Trae Crowder. When I got off the plane and Tiffany Phillips said, Mar-a-Lago's been raided, I'm like, Trae Crowder, Mar-a-Lago. And guess what? He did not disappoint me. Trae has the GOP and their hardcore conservative values in his crosshairs. Nobody today in America is as spot on as Trae when it comes to well-explained liberal ideology. Quite simply, he speaks the truth. He breaks the mold. He is extremely passionate, well-read, and well-educated. If we are lucky, a new generation is tuning in to the liberal redneck, and he is opening their minds. As Democrats in Oklahoma, we can learn a thing or two from Trae, not to shy away from our values and to drill down on hypocrisy. Please join me in giving the liberal redneck, Trae Crowder, an Oklahoma-sized welcome to the Cherokee Nation.
Yeah, we good? We can hear everybody can hear me? You guys hear me all right? Yeah? Yeah, okay. Sorry for coming out here and standing awkwardly for 3 minutes before my actual introduction. That was my fault. But I'm glad to be here in the Oklahoma holler. I'm gonna be totally honest with you. I don't really know where I'm at right now, but that's okay. I feel like when they were booking entertainment for this event, they were like, we need somebody that's not gonna think of Deliverance whenever they turn off a back road. We need somebody that can be out in the middle of nowhere and not hear in their head. And my agency was like, we got just the guy. I was in Northwest Arkansas last week at a club there doing stand-up, and my opener was a comic from Oklahoma City, and he asked me what I had coming up soon. And I told him, I was like, well, next Saturday I'm doing an event for a bunch of Oklahoma Democrats out in the middle of nowhere. And he was like, that sounds like a trap to me. Like, you sure you're safe out there? You need security or something? I told him it would be fine. Now my agents were like, yeah, you want to do comedy for a bunch of Oklahoma Democrats? I was like, hell yeah, those are my people. And they're like, well, there's going to be kids there, so they want you to be family friendly. And I was like, have they seen my videos? Asking me to be family friendly is like asking Toby Keith to not bring up 9/11. But it'll be okay. It'll be okay. I'm going to do my best. This is my best behavior. Some of y'all, when this is over, are going to be like, that was his best behavior? Okay. But no, it'll be fine. I'm glad to be here. I hadn't really kept up with y'all too much, so before this show, I Googled Oklahoma politics. That was a mistake. I shouldn't have done that. Got a lot of results about Senator Jim Inhofe. Senator Jim Inhofe, largely regarded as one of the most conservative members of this U.S. Congress. Being considered one of the most conservative members of this Congress is like being considered one of the dumbest people at a flat earth convention. It's like, listen, we know the bar is already on the floor, but somehow, against all odds, this guy limbo's underneath it. So, Jim Inhofe, when he first ran for the Senate, his campaign slogan was God, guns, and gays, which I feel like had to confuse at least a few Oklahomans. They heard God, guns, and gays, and they were like, woo, woo, boo. Wait, hold on, that's two good things and a bad thing. I don't know, how are we supposed to feel about this? I don't understand. But yeah, Inhofe's been terrible about gay rights his whole career, but his main thing is like passion project, I feel like, is he's a climate change denier, right? And this is how he explained his rationale. This is a direct quote. He was like, I know we don't have to worry about man-made effects from climate change because after the biblical flood with Noah and the ark, God promised us he would never again use the environment to take down mankind. That's right. A higher power has made us promises, and a higher power would never lie to us. A higher power would never go back on their promises. And meanwhile, every Indian in Oklahoma is like, I don't know who told him that. That's not been our experience. But it wasn't just Inhofe. There's also Governor Kevin Stitt. He came up a lot. He's a businessman. He's going to run Oklahoma the way you're supposed to run a business. Well, I looked it up, and a few years ago, Business Week named his mortgage company one of the top 15 shadiest lenders in this country. So, yeah, honestly, I read that, and I was like, I can't believe he made it out of the Republican primary. Like, normally they need way more crimes than that. Like, I feel like the RNC's meeting with him, and they're like, listen, if you want to be a rising star, you got to pump those numbers up, buddy. We love how you're screwing the Indians over. That's great. That's a good start. But, you're going to need some assault charges. All right? You need more corruption. If you want to be a viable candidate, you're going to have to be way shadier than you are. But he got in. He's the governor, and since he's been the governor, he's devoted himself to fighting imaginary problems. Yeah, he's on the forefront of the war against imaginary problems. His first main thing was critical race theory, so I'm going to make it illegal for Oklahoma public schools to teach critical race theory. And Oklahoma public schools are like, what is that? What are you talking about? Yeah, we don't know what that is. He was like, going too hard on the horrors of slavery and the Tulsa Race Massacre and stuff like that. And they were like, oh, you mean history class? Yeah, that's just history class. And he was like, Oklahoma kids shouldn't be made to feel bad when they learn about the history of slavery and things like that. And I'm just like, how are they supposed to feel exactly? Like, call me crazy, but I always felt like the purpose of history class was to teach kids about things that happened. And sometimes things that happened make you feel bad. And when things that happen make you feel bad, you endeavor to not let those things happen again. That's how I thought it was supposed to work. But it wasn't just critical race theory. Also, he backed the Save Women's Sports Act, which would keep transgender athletes from competing in high school women's sports, which, that makes sense to me. You guys know how middle-aged Republican men have always cared so much about the integrity of women's sports. You know how they are. Every middle-aged Republican man is always tailgating the Tulsa High girls volleyball match, just painting their faces and stuff. They just care so much about the integrity of women's sports. Yeah, I'd like to ask Kevin Stitt, can you name 3 WNBA players? Can you do that? But yeah, it wasn't just those things. He went in on guns. He made it legal for every Oklahoman over the age of 21 or 18, if you're in the armed services, to carry a firearm with no permit or training. Oh, thank God. I've always thought the main problem with gun culture in this country is too much training. These gun nuts are far too responsible. Can't tell you how many times I've been in line at Arby's in Nashville and seen some member of the mayonnaise militia standing there with an AR-15 strapped to his chest and thought to myself, I hope he hasn't been properly trained with that thing. That would make me uncomfortable. But he didn't stop there. He made it legal for Oklahomans to open carry in public places like parks and zoos. Yeah, well, hey, you never know when a Jurassic Park situation might break out, okay? You guys scoff at it now, but you're at the zoo and your 3-year-old falls in the gorilla enclosure. You're going to find yourself wishing there was 70 to 80 highly armed, poorly trained Oklahomans with their rifles aimed in the general direction of your baby and that monkey. Yeah. Who's going to be laughing then? Yeah, no, they fix all these problems that nobody had in the first place. The things that some people choose to get mad about, given the actual problems we have in this country, just blow my mind. It's like we got the planet is dying, democracy's crumbling underneath our feet, and they're worried about critical race theory and like Mr. Potato Head's genitals and stuff like that. It's like, it'd be like if you lived in an apartment building and you went to a tenant meeting and you stood up and you were like, listen, the foundation of this building is eroding underneath us. and I want to know what we plan to do about that. And some other guy stands up and he's like, all right, we'll get to that. But first things first, they're putting skirts on dogs on the second floor. And I want to know our plan for that. It's crazy, man. It does seem like they're getting crazier. Like if you're a blue dot in the Red Sea, you're used to dealing with their stuff, you know, but it feels like it's taken on a whole new flavor in recent years, you know, just getting weirder and harder to deal with. It's like it's like before you lived in a neighborhood and you walked out, you're like, I'm pretty sure that's a meth lab over there. But, and there, and there, and there. But, hey, they seem like good enough people, right? Then a few years ago, you walked out and they had painted a big sign that said, meth lab, arrow, pointing down. And you're like, well, that's disconcerting. Well, hey, at least you know where they are and how they feel. And in the past 2 years, you're like, they painted a swastika on the meth lab. This is bad. This is getting bad. But you know, at least you guys in Oklahoma, like, you've had college football to make you feel better. Today, notwithstanding. Them dang Texas Christians came in today and ruined that. Texas Christians, among the worst of the Christians, I've always said. But no, seriously, you guys, if you've at least have had that to make you feel better in the fall for most of the past few years. I'm from Tennessee, man. Being a liberal college football fan from Tennessee is like living in a place where your neighbors fill you with existential dread every day. And to combat that, every Saturday in the fall, you sign up to be punched in the face by a 20-year-old repeatedly. Right? And it's like, but there's reasons for optimism now on both fronts, like in college football and politics. They're like, hey, Tennessee's number 8 in the country. They're undefeated. Hey, Biden's getting stuff passed. Trump got raided. Some of the poll results look good. There's reasons for optimism, right? And I find myself reacting to both things in the exact same way. And somebody's just like, hey, might not be too bad this year. And I'm just like, that don't sound right. You sure about that? Have you seen all the other years? Like, no, hey, we got some good people running, you know, might pull some upsets. I'm like, no, they'll mess it up. That's just what we do. But we'll see what happens, you know. I don't know. There are reasons for optimism. Take Georgia as an example. Winning national championships, and Georgia's a blue state now. How about that? Pretty crazy. Yeah, good for them. Yeah, I get jealous of it. It's sort of like if the southern states are a group of dysfunctional siblings from a family of degenerate alcoholics, right? Which I feel like is an apt metaphor. Then Georgia's the one, they just got out of rehab. They got a real good job nobody thought they could get, you know. They're kind of teetering. We're all sort of expecting them to mess it up, you know, but for now it's like, good for you, Georgia. Keep it going, Georgia. Right. Meanwhile, Tennessee's behind a Waffle House smoking bath salts with Alabama in the back of a 92 Astro van. That's how Tennessee's recovery is going at present. But yeah, I'm glad to be here. I go all over the place. I was recently in Portland, Oregon. I feel like Portland's interesting because I feel like it's sort of a snapshot of the way the right looks at the far left in this country in general, you know? And it's a really interesting combination of stereotypes that they hold for the same place, you know? Like, they all think that Portland's just a bunch of emaciated baristas with a handlebar mustache, you know? And I tell them, that's ridiculous. Portland's a vast metropolis made up of an eclectic array of all different types of mustaches. You know, like it's not just handlebar. But it's not just the Portlandia thing they think. They also think that Portland is like Fallujah for socialists. Like that's where the most hardcore Antifa super commandos are at. And that's a wild combination of stereotypes to hold for the same place. It's like they all think everybody in Portland is getting dressed up as a Victorian-era haberdasher to go set City Hall on fire, and then they want to make fun of them for that? That's a point of ridicule? I'm like, dude, I don't know about you, but I feel like if I was in the middle of a full-scale riot and all of a sudden a chimney sweep looking feller emerged from the smoke bomb haze on top of one of them big front wheel bicycles. Like, I wouldn't mess with that guy. That's how you get choked out with a pocket watch chain. That's whimsical anarchy? You don't want no part of that, man. But they do. They both condescend to Portland Antifa types for being limp-wristed soy boys, but they're also terrified of them at the same time. It's like everybody in my town's general approach to Portland people is like, check out this little wuss. Oh, is he coming over here? No, hey, buddy, look. Hey, no, I love Sprouts. I love them. Please don't make me gay. They're terrified of them, man. Terrified of the far left. They're so terrified at one point they convinced themselves that Portland was like exporting hippie terrorists to the rest of the country. That's a real thing they thought was happening. They thought Portland was like loading up VW buses with squadrons of Special Forces shadow vegans and deploying them to small town America in a covert attempt to teach their cows yoga. I don't know. I'm still unclear on what the end game was supposed to be. But they were really worried about it. And the whole time I was like, man, here, you think they're coming here to this town, Portland Antifa? They'd rather go to Somalia, dude. Like, imagine your average Antifa recruit going in there to Portland headquarters and the sergeant tells him, yeah, we're going to need to deploy you to Dothan, Alabama. He's just like, could I just blow myself up in a bank lobby or something? I think that'd be better for the cause. Also, did they really think they weren't going to recognize them when they got off the hippie bus? Like they thought they would blend in somehow? Like they think these guys are going through deep cover small town training? Like that recruit's up there in headquarters getting drilled by a sergeant. Like, what's your name, recruit? Jimmy Lee Roberts, sir. What's your job? Working for my daddy. When'd you get married? When I was 19. You got any kids? Don't know how good they got it. How you feel about concussions? Ruining the game, sir. He's ready. It's ridiculous. But they believe a lot of ridiculous things, you know? Like it's wild. They have this thing going on where I feel like it seems like they're gonna make sense until the last minute and they just veer off into total lunacy. You know what I mean? Like your Aunt Tammy on Facebook will post something like, has anybody seen where most of the articles that get labeled as being misleading come from conservative sources? And you're like, yeah, I have seen that. Why do you think that might be? He's like, well, obviously Facebook's part of the grander liberal media conspiracy to silence the truth. You're like, what? That's really the simplest explanation in your mind? That's what you landed on? But it's part of this dynamic they have going on that I call, yeah, so, and what? No. It's like, has anybody seen where college-educated adults skew heavily towards progressivism? Yeah, so? So I'm tired of these liberal professors brainwashing our youth. What? No. Like, you know, there's a lot of dangerous, unhinged people in this country with a gun. Yeah, so everybody else needs to be armed so they can defend themselves. What? No. You know, liberals talk about how vaccines work, and they'll bring up things like polio. Yeah, so? Well, I never even met anybody with polio. Obviously, wasn't that big of a deal to begin with. What? No. And you can't break through it no matter how hard you try. You can take them step by step through it. It won't matter. It won't make any difference. Like, take your Aunt Tammy with that first example with the articles. You try to sit her down, and you're like, okay, so, all right, let me put it to you this way. So, if I told you that most people who contract lung cancer are long-term smokers, that would tell you that smoking causes lung cancer. That's right, exactly. So, if I told you that most of the world's best ice hockey players grew up in a very cold climate, that would tell you that they play hockey more where it's cold. Right, exactly. So, if I told you that most of the articles that are labeled as misleading come from conservative sources, that would tell you that worldwide communist blood cult. What? How? Why? No. But yeah, they believe all kinds of crazy things, man. Like I feel like white supremacy is having a moment in this country. right now. White supremacy is wild to me for a few reasons. First of all, I feel like every white supremacist I've ever seen is pretty much the least supreme looking dude I could ever imagine. Like I've never seen an avowed white supremacist and been like, behold, the pinnacle of man. Like it's not a bunch of Hemsworths walking around with swastika tattoos, you know? Your average white supremacist looks like Busted Magazine's Loser of the Year 2005. Walks in, has got a tattoo on his neck of a skull that's got more teeth than he does. Your average white supremacist walks in looking like he's about to invent a whole new type of hepatitis they ain't even thought up yet. But the other reason white supremacy is wild to me is because, I think it's wild to keep believing in supremacy given all the L's they've taken over the course of this country's history, you know? I know it's easy to look around right now and feel like they're doing pretty well, but really, since we got started, they've mostly lost every major battle they've ever fought, you know? And they still believe in supremacy. Like, I feel like the mood of their meetings has had to get weirder and weirder over the years. Like, they come into the meeting in 1865, they're like, all right, so they freed the slaves. Big whoop, okay? Listen, they still can't marry our women. They still can't go to our schools. It's going to be fine, guys. Hey, how's any of that ever going to change? It ain't like women can vote, okay? 1965, they come in like, all right, so they can drink from our water fountains and all that, you know, but it's going to be all right. Look, it's not like one of them's the president. Okay? 2008, they come in kicking stuff over like, okay, all right, this is a tough pill to swallow, but listen, it's going to be all right, guys. It's not like they're going to start taking the Confederate flag down. All right? We're not going to start renaming streets or schools or anything like that. It's going to be fine. We got to focus on the positives. Hey, gay people still can't get married. That's something. Some guy in the back's like, aren't some gay guys white men? Shouldn't they be supreme too? And he's like, no, Bobby, they don't count. You know that. Come on now. Now, listen, we got to focus on the positives, guys. Hey, there's still no blacks in country music. Same guy in the back's like, what about Darius Rucker? Shut up, Bobby. Jesus Christ. Gay marriage gets legalized. They're sitting there smoking cigarettes, staring at the wall like, I don't know. Y'all know what transgenders are? Well, I was thinking we could maybe make it illegal for them to take a dump. I don't know. I'm upset. And then, 2016 election happens. They bust in like, back in the game, baby. Yeah, I told y'all we'd be back in the driver's seat, and now they can never take it away from us, 2020 election. They're like, they took it away from us. But it's okay, we'll get it back. We're going to march on the Capitol, and with our might combined, they can never stop us. What are they going to do? Arrest us all? And now they're writing letters from jail like, they arrested us all. We ain't got to just talk about politics. Let's talk about cultural stuff. I'm one of you, and I live in California now, and that's a whole thing. I started, and when COVID happened, I started trying to convince myself that maybe my accent would play better out there with all this stuff going on in the world, you know? Because I feel like one of the only positive stereotypes about our people is others think we're good in an apocalypse scenario, you know? Like, I thought maybe people out there would hear me talk and be like, I bet he's got a lot of meat in cans. He seems like he'd bury a shed in the yard. We should get to know that guy. You know, like I put this trashy above ground pool in my backyard for my sons to play in, and it was a pain in the butt. I was out there cussing at it for days, and I feel like before all this was going on, my neighbors would see me messing with that pool and be like, is he trying to attract ducks to shoot? What's he doing, right? But with all this going on, they watch me messing with that pool, and they're like, John, the hillbilly's putting in a reservoir. Should we have a reservoir? Where do you get a reservoir? Yeah, people just They just don't know what it's like, like I think a lot of that is in my head living out there. Like, I think everybody that hears me talk thinks I'm dumb, so I find myself like overcompensating for it a lot. Like, I'm just using big words totally superfluously, like in ways that are neither germane nor apropos, just getting pretentious for no reason. Like, I'll be in an Uber, the driver finds out I'm from Tennessee. He says something totally innocent, like, "Oh, Tennessee, you guys got all 4 seasons in Tennessee, huh?" And I'm just like, 4 seasons? Well, that depends. You talking about the weather or the seminal masterwork of Italian composer Antonio Vivaldi? Either way, the answer is yes. We do have that. He's just like, what the... Nothing confuses people like a pretentious hillbilly, man. Especially out there, like, I think a lot of that is in my head, but I know for sure people out there do not know much about the rural South or people from there. Like, sometimes people out there find out where I'm from and they talk to me like I'm a North Korean defector or something like that. Like, I've literally had people ask me totally sincerely, "You're from the rural South? How did you get out?" Well, first I had to bribe a riverboat captain. Have him secret me away up the mighty Mississippi. At which point I was able to barter for passage on one of those, what do you call them, sky trucks. That's so fascinating. They just don't know. Like, I can't prove this, but I bet you, though, in 1994, there was at least a handful of people out there who genuinely did not realize that Forrest Gump was mentally handicapped. And they just couldn't tell the difference. Like, they were talking about it at work the next day, like, "Oh, it's this amazing film about a completely typical Alabama man." People don't know what it's like to be from the South or just to be from rural America in general, and I feel like it makes a huge impact on you, Like, sometimes I feel like that's why I don't connect with my generation as much, because I'm a millennial, I'm an older millennial, but more importantly, I'm a rural millennial. And I think that matters. Like, I grew up in rural America in the 90s, and from what I can tell, that's kind of like growing up in regular America in the 70s. Like, I talk to people that grew up in the 70s, they're like, "Oh, our parents didn't care. We rode on the hood of the car. Our favorite hobbies was trying to kill each other with darts and diving into rock quarries and stuff." And I'm just listening like, I mean, we had Nickelodeon, but other than that, yeah, same thing. Rural parents in the 90s didn't care, man, and it's not that they didn't. They loved us and all that. It just, looking back, it feels like our safety was not of paramount concern to them. And it wasn't ignorance either. Like, in the preceding generations, there were things that were dangerous to kids that parents had not found out about yet. Stuff like lead in paint, asbestos in the walls. Parents didn't know. But by the 90s, our parents had all that information. They were still just like, "Dad, what are you going to do? What are you going to do, supervise them all the time? Ain't nobody got time for that. Oh. Now get them in the bed of the truck before I'm too drunk to drive them to the fair." I think all the time, me and my little sister used to stay with our grandma in the summertime. She lived in the projects, and every morning at 9 a.m., we'd leave and just be gone. All day, no cell phones, no checking in, just gone all day. Right? Just out there, breaking into the abandoned factory, climbing into storm drains, just kid stuff, And it's not that our grandma was unaware of any potential dangers. I know, because she used to follow us out on the porch and yell after me, "Trae, you watch out for your little sister. There's a lot of crazy people out there. Somebody will snatch her up." And I'm just yelling back over my shoulder like, "I'm 9, but okay." Like, what was I supposed to do about it? They couldn't snatch me up too? I'm kind of offended in retrospect. It's like my grandma was saying, "Yeah, they don't want your little fat butt, but her, they'll take her. And if they take her, we're all going to be real upset. So you better keep your head on a swivel." We honestly might have been better off, though, because the other thing about my grandma, and I love this one, I worship this woman. But the other thing about her was she lived in a 700 square foot apartment. She smoked 2 packs of Marlboro Reds a day, never opened a door, never cracked a window. But hey, she wasn't cooling the whole neighborhood down. Yeah. You gonna pay her light bill? Yeah, that's what I thought. Keep the door closed. So it was like a 1920s bookie operation in there. Just a constant haze of cowboy killer smoke hovering, I'd say roughly, I don't know, child's forehead high. So we were just making little chemtrails running through her apartment. So it's like, what were our options? You know, we could either stay inside and be speed running emphysema and watching Ricky Lake, right? Or go outside and end up in a van roulette. Like, you got to pick your poison. Yeah, our parents didn't care, man. If you want any more proof that parents in the 90s didn't care, look no further than the haircuts they sent us to school with every day. Rural parents in the 90s were just like, oh, dang, I forgot. He's got school pictures tomorrow. Sit down there, buddy. Hey, baby, bring me them clippers and that chili bowl. I'll line him up real quick. And don't forget to wear your Earnhardt shirt and smile real big. For a huge chunk of my childhood, I had a rat tail. A rat tail. It's right there in the name, man. It's like my mom was taking me to the barbershop / my aunt who dropped out of beauty school's trailer and set me down there like, yeah, give him something that really sends the message the type of garbage people we are, you know. Something that makes other children inherently mistrust and fear him upon a glance. Yes, truly, I can think of no better animal after which to fashion the appearance of my firstborn than the tail end of a rat. Specifically, that's what he needs. But yeah, people don't know what that's like. People in other places, they don't understand what it's like to grow up like that, you know, to grow up rural or grow up in the South. I have wondered if maybe the past few years in this country, everything that's gone on, if maybe that would help other people to understand what it's like. Because at this point, after everything that's happened, America is the South of the rest of the Western world. Right? At this point, I don't care if you're from Portland, San Francisco, Minneapolis. As far as France is concerned, you Mississippi now. We all the same dumb in the eyes of the world. I met some Californians who are worried about it. They're aware of our reputation abroad. They'll say things like, you know, I don't even want to travel lately because I know I'll go somewhere, they'll find out I'm an American, and who knows what they're going to think about me. And I'm listening like, oh, yeah? Yeah? You worried that people from elsewhere might find out where you're from and make broad, sweeping assumptions about you? Yeah, that sounds terrible. I don't know what I would do in that scenario. Now, it'd be even worse for me, man. I get over there and some Frenchman's like, oh, Americans, they're all ignorant baguettes, son. I'm just like, who you calling a baguette? Yeah, I know about your bread, Pierre. No, but all the stereotypes that the rest of the country has for the South and for rural America, they're the same stereotypes that Europe has for Americans in general. It's the same list. They're all loud, they're all dumb, they all love Jesus, they're all racist, they all got guns. And as a Southerner and as an American, I hear that and I'm like, hey, yes. But also y'all too, you know. Like everywhere deals with that type of thing, man. Like, oh, Americans, they're all loud. Europeans can get loud. Tell an Italian you put pineapple on pizza, something like that. Their hands get loud. Fitta, fitta, fitta. You know, I don't talk that spaghetti talk, but you know what I mean. Like, oh, Americans, they're all dumb. They got dumb people too. We just don't ever think about them. You know, like if I tell you to picture an Englishman, we all think of the same guy, Professor Oxford, smoking a pipe, saying stuff like indubitably, right? But you could just as easily picture the drunken hooligan shirtless after a soccer match shambling through the streets like, you what, mate? It's like, Jesus Christ, did you escape from a pirate jail? Just rock stupid, man. They got plenty of them. But we let them get away with it. I love England, but they get away with all kinds of stuff, you know? You realize that their royals get away with stuff that our rednecks get roasted for? It's true. They got messed up teeth. They're always marrying their cousins, you know. You can never really tell what their job is exactly. Half of them's called Earl. It's not fair. Like, oh, Americans are all crazy about Jesus. We're not the ones with all them paintings of angels with their wieners out. They're the wiener out angel painting capital of the world, man. Like, oh, America's so racist. I just think that's rich coming from the colonials, you know? Like, they literally invented all of that. All the worst parts of our history got started, and we wasn't even us yet. We was still them. They came over here and started all that, and they talk about how messed up America is. It's like, well, we learned it from you, Dad. Oh, Americans all got guns. They'll shoot you. Yeah, you're daggum right. If you don't quit talking all that trash. Yeah, I don't have a witty retort for that one. Sometimes they got you dead to rights. Listen, I'm pretty much out of time, but I wanted to take a minute just to say sincerely from the heart how much I appreciate you guys and people like you in every state in this country. Because, here's the thing. I mostly just say stuff. That's what I do. I say stuff. I'm so impressed by people that do stuff, you know? And you guys and everybody were celebrating tonight is out there doing stuff. They're on the front lines, pushing back when everybody else says that it's a hopeless cause. They fight back in the middle of all that. And I have unending respect and appreciation for that. And I just want to let you guys know, keep it up, keep pushing that boulder, keep being who you are, keep fighting the fight on the front lines. And I love you very much. Thank you. I'm Trae Crowder.